Let's Talk, getting to the root causes of the important issues of the day. This on-the-air community forum believes your voice matters and welcomes all thoughts and views without judgment. Please join today's conversation by calling 415-663-8492.
Yes, why not? And, yes, it's Let's Talk. And when you call in to 415-663-8492 or 8317, I believe they're both working, you'll hear a funny little buzzy noise as I put you in the system, but then please hang on until you hear me say you're on the air. Give us your first name, turn your radio down, and please, what's your language? What are you typing over there, Schultz?
Oh, well,
Charles Schultz is in the studio, typing away.
Conspiring.
Shelley Rugg is here, and...
Hello.
Who am I? Do I have a name?
What's that guy's
Who am I?
name?
Who am I in this scene? Who am I? What's the line? There's a line here.
Who am I here?
Who am I here? That's a scene in a home, since you bring it up. What is the topic today?
Home.
Oh, I see.
What it is, strangely enough. What a coincidence. Brought about by...
Yes, what?
Well, because someone here in the studio is actually leaving a home to start another home. So what is the meaning of home? That's
like a fox eating his kits and bounding into another field to find a new vixen. What is a home? I don't know. How long have you... Well, you're the longest in the same place, aren't you?
Almost 40 years.
40 years.
Wow.
Oh, fantastic. In that same spot on your ranch?
Well, 2 years in Inverness.
Ew. Just long enough to know that it was the wrong side of the bay.
Now in the Inverness view shed.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see.
just over the ridge. You can do whatever you like up there. It was... I don't know. I read an article as well, and that got me thinking about the actual meaning of the word home in the 21st century. I mean, what does it really mean? If you're a renter, what is your real home? Is it really home just because you happen to be renting it month to month? It's not really, is it? It's, you can make a home. Is home where the heart is? Why are you typing over there?
Look,
Turn off your mic. Jeez. God. Concentrate, please.
I've been put in the corner. Did you turn off the right one?
Yeah.
You did turn off the right
Yeah.
one. I can't tell anything from these.
He's writing an essay about home.
I'm writing,
so.
exactly. I was talking to somebody about maybe starting a home here in West Marin.
Oh, my.
So anyway, what about home? Oh, I don't know. I moved a lot as a child. I bounced from lots and lots of different places.
So do you have a home in your background? What do you think of as a home?
I suppose the place that I spent the first 10 or 12 years of my life, which would be a sort of tract housing built after the war in Flint, Michigan. Whole sort of, neighborhoods, built these same little houses. They're probably, 1,100 square feet or something like that. And so when I think of home, that would be it. But since
really?
I'm being chastised for typing away here, I would like to say that, home obviously has radically shifted in meaning over time. So Professor Jan de Vries of the University of California at Berkeley. But anybody who took a class from Jan de Vries, call 663-8492. Tell us if he's still alive. He said, so when the Industrial Revolution happens and you're manufacturing all this stuff in factories, where was the demand for that stuff? And what he says is that there was a kind of proto-industrial moment in which people were making lots of stuff in their home. So yes, people would be farmers and engage in all these different activities, but there was a huge amount of home production, quite a bit of it undertaken by women, right? Who were making stuff in the house to sell to their neighbors. They use a little bit of themselves, but there was this market that existed. So the home was the center of sort of all productive activity. Everything you made your whole life revolved around it. But now we have a symbol of the home, which actually doesn't relate very much to which harkens back.
How reductive.
To that
so reductive.
Well, how so?
I think home is where there's a connection. You can have a connection. It doesn't matter whether you own it or rent it. If you have that connection to a place, you can make that home. I think, though, you have to have children, Paul.
Wow. A home without children is just
I
a
just
house.
wanted to get a smile out of that.
And then when the children leave, is it not a home anymore?
Oh, the empty nest.
You know,
They don't leave.
When I look back, though, I lived in houses, but when I look back, I didn't have a home in many ways.
Aw.
I was kind of designed out.
Designed out. What does that mean?
I was designed out. I think that dear old mom was so creative and so controlling of the environment in a sense that she didn't really create a space for me to be myself.
Oh.
And so when I look back at the houses I lived in,
Yeah.
it's hard to connect and say they were homes for me.
Well, so you lived in several different places with your parents?
I lived in several.
Ah.
I lived in a house where I grew up, which actually was close to, that was a home. And then we moved several times, and neither time did I connect, which is, I think, really essential for making a home.
Huh.
It's that connection to a place.
So there you were, a child, and you didn't feel like that was your home? Or
Well,
you
as
don't feel like it now? You thought it was then, right?
No, I was oblivious then. I didn't realize what I didn't have. I didn't realize it.
So basically, you just used the word reductive to interrupt me before I finished my thought. It had nothing to do with what the word reductive means.
No, I just used that word. It just seemed like a great word.
Yes, thank you. So the symbolic character of the home, but we have
We
a caller.
do have a caller,
Yes.
yes.
All right.
Hello, caller. You are on the air. What's your name, please?
Mo from Inverness.
Hello, Mo.
Hello, Paul. How are you?
Very well.
My mother had a saying, home is where your hat is.
Where your hat is, not your heart, but your hat.
Where your hat is. And I have applied that all my life, wherever I've traveled, no matter, even if we, an hour away and we stay overnight somewhere like a hotel or something like that, and we would go out to a restaurant, and I'd say, I have to go back home because I left something at home. So in other words, wherever you are in another country and you're staying somewhere, wherever you are,
Huh.
that is home.
So, like in a hotel, you mean? In a hotel?
No, wherever you are. If you're staying in someone's house, or you're staying in a bed and breakfast or a hotel
Or your car.
anywhere that's not your residence where you are.
Oh.
I think Barbara Streisand
so
made a song about that.
But
Those exact
Stephen
words.
is saying that Barbara Streisand made a song about that.
I got a room.
I
Yeah.
can't
Any
get
place
up.
I hang my head is home.
Oh, it's definitely Barbara. I can hear it.
Wherever I hang my hat is home.
I see.
Wherever I am,
Yeah.
I hang my hat. That is home.
So how long have you been
Papa was a
hating?
rolling stone.
Oh, my.
Everybody's singing today.
Wherever his hat was his home.
That's a very dark view, actually, of that saying.
But so,
Yeah.
did you have a peripatetic life? I mean, were you traveling a lot all over the place, or?
I've traveled all my life, on and off. But wherever, as I say, it's not living where you are. Like, for instance, I live in Inverness, but if Italy, and I'm staying in a hotel in Italy, and I go shopping, and I forget something. It's time. We've got to go back. I've got to go home, meaning back to the hotel, because that is where you are at the moment. Is your home.
I see. Well, that's an
Okay.
interesting point of view. Thank you, Mo. Appreciate it.
Well, since by that definition, Studio A is my home, I'm going to light up a cigarette if nobody minds.
Excuse me.
Oh, well, get out of my house.
Oh, so
Well, that's interesting.
inhospitable.
So, home is where your hat is. Home is where you hang your hat. Home is wherever you are. You take your home with you. It's like,
Well,
that's interesting.
I don't wear hats. Is that why I'm not a homeowner?
Well. Well, so, for example, do you regard where you live as your home, Charles?
I guess. I mean, I just get back to that point. Like, where is it that you the productive focus of your life? Where is it that you're living and working? Most people don't live in the place where they do whatever productive activity it is, and you can see this a lot in vacation homes. Vacation homes are often set up to be like shrines to that earlier conception of what it meant to have a home. So they have little wood shops that are never used. They've got fishing poles that collect dust. They've got all of this stuff that references this earlier time in which our life was more about subsistence, and it was about being in one place. And your relationship to that one place, to its soil, to its water resource, to its sunlight, to its whatever, in this one specific place. Now, for the rich, home is wherever you have a credit card and an iPhone, you can be home anywhere, I suppose.
No, it's where you make that connection.
What connection? What does that mean?
Yeah.
I think.
Well, and it can't be without children.
That's right. Where you make that connection, and then you have children. Well, that's an interesting definition of home.
I was facetious.
So what do you mean, that connection?
Well, I think that she could obviously make that connection in a hotel room. I think home is where, how do I describe that connection? If you have your little garden there, if you feel comfortable painting a wall, if your kitchen is a place where you enjoy yourself, I mean, these are the things that connect to home. And not everybody cares about a kitchen, but for me, things like that, having a garden, have a kitchen, those. If I didn't have those, I really wouldn't feel at home.
How about you, Shelley? Where do you feel at home?
I think where my comfy bed is home. Because when I go to stay at a hotel or a friend's house, I can make myself as comfortable as possible, and I can say, well, that's where I can leave my stuff, and I can go back to it. But it's when I come home and sleep in my own bed, it's my own. It's an environment, a space that I say this is mine, even if it's just for now. Which in my case it is. I'm a renter, so I look at the possibility that I could be asked to move, at a moment's notice. But where my bed is, I think.
Yeah,
but is your studio in the same space?
I did paint in my home, but now I do have a separate space.
How far away is it from where you live?
About 15 minutes or less.
Oh, okay. Oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, on this thing of it used to be that jobs, for example, Flint, Michigan, for example,
right.
that the corporations would build factories and would build homes for their workers so that everything, those homes were there and that was where you worked, right, 3 blocks down, you went to the factory. That's not happening anymore. Now it's corporations are so movable. They threaten the local governments with, we're going to move if you don't give us tax breaks, or
or we're not going to come.
And everyone in those homes around there, suddenly, is that still a home? If you
Paul, you've lived in the same place for a long time. Do you consider that home?
Yes. And why is that?
Yeah. Wow.
But see, I happen to be moving out of it fairly soon, so
kept that under
then
wraps.
I will have another
Wow.
home.
Is it your choice to move?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's what he's saying.
And so it's, but yeah, it's the place where you can close the door and I can be myself. I can I can wander around naked if I want to. Well, I've done that out here too, but
blubber your head off till all hours of the night.
Of course, yeah.
Nudity is essential.
I think it's something distinct from the rest of the world somehow.
Yes.
And it's not mine, but it feels like mine.
Right.
I made it mine when we first moved in there. I made all kinds of things to change it and make it mine, really, or ours.
Right.
Well,
right.
you read a blurb for an event that's coming up, which I'll limit my comments about. But it is this problem. People want to be re-embedded in nature, right? They want to sort of discover themselves as biological beings existing in nature. The problem is they're constantly separating themselves from being in a specific place with specific characteristics. All of these people who are going to go to these kinds of conferences, maybe they flew in. Well, we're going to it before we go to Oaxaca this week. if you want to be in a place and know a place, you actually have to be in it in order to know it for a long period of time. And what we do is we constantly dislocate ourselves. We constantly displace ourselves. And most people, that's just the commute. That's just what you do every day. And so I'm not saying anybody has a malign intention, but I think that there is a contradiction or a paradox in the way in which, say, nature is sold in a place in West Marin and what the reality of re-embedding yourself in nature actually is. It's not a play date. It's not something you can buy. It's not a weekend getaway. It's this specific place and its characteristics and how they relate to how you survive. We just don't have very much of that. That just doesn't exist for most people.
And my favorite saying at weekends is that nobody seems to live where they want to be.
That's right.
At the first day off they get in their car and they drive up here.
Yeah, right.
instead of being at home, whatever that means.
I think it relates to alienation, is that most people are deeply unsatisfied or do not have meaning. Maybe they're not unsatisfied, and they certainly wouldn't say that they were unsatisfied. They don't have a strong intention or meaning associated with the work they do to survive. And that is what they carry to that home in which they live in. They want to be separated from that feeling of sort of meaninglessness or purposelessness, or not being able to place your own intentions on your activities in order to survive. And you do that by going to this symbolic homes. That's why I say these second homes in West Marin are often set up with workshops and this thing and that thing, as though that was the life that they were living or wanted to live. And so they can leave that home in the city and then come and get into that fantasy. And again, this is not saying people are mean or nasty or whatever. It's just kind of the world we've fallen in and the psychological characteristics of interacting with that world. Is that too reductive?
Do you ever find yourself, say, at a party and you say, I'm going home?
Well, yeah.
Well, that's your home, right?
Oh, no, if I ever... Well, no, I actually don't ever go home. Did you?
Oh, no.
Maybe
He's in everyone else.
That's right. I just fall asleep in the garden.
So there's a little article here. The notion of home in the old days became the keystone for a code of domestic morality. Interesting. Simultaneously, the notion of homeland supplied the first article of faith for patriotism, persuading men to die in wars, which often served no other interest except that of the ruling class. Originally, home meant the center of the world, not in a geographical sense, but in an ontological sense, that, yourself. It was something built around the real self. The home was the place from which the world could be founded. A home was established at the heart of the real. In traditional societies, everything that made sense of the world was real. The surrounding chaos existed and was threatening, but it was threatening because it was unreal. It was not in your home. It was everything outside your home or your home village or whatever. So it became the home then was a place of safety. I guess that still carries over, and you feel safe in your warm bed. I feel safe in my little kitchen.
Yeah.
People called Romani, they go to the house.
Well, I relocated. So I made Southern California, Long Beach, my home ever since I was 3 years old until about 4 years ago. And so for me, there's a other layer of home that goes beyond my personal space and goes into the community. So I think that might relate to what you were saying about connection. That I had a lot of connection in my home-based community that I've had to build in my new community.
Right.
So that doesn't just... You could pop your bed down, but now you're in a foreign land,
Right.
And having to, relearn a community that's outside your home.
I guess when you say community, it's like all of these words have just been drained of their meaning and can mean anything. So our friend Mo, and no wonder it sounds as though she comes from a continent populated by convicts.
No. South Africa.
What the heck?
Oh, South Africa.
Yeah.
Sorry, didn't really, not convicts, slave drivers. That it has no meaning. If home is where your hat is, that means home doesn't exist. If community is learning the roads of the new place you live in, then community doesn't mean very much.
Okay, so what I'm talking about are the people.
Yeah, the people,
Okay,
not the roads.
Which people?
You have to you have to make friends with people who live near you. That's called
the people you're not friends with.
Community.
Absolutely
People
not
who live
necessary to make
nearby.
friends with people who live near you.
Well, okay. Well, then you don't live in the community.
Can you have? Can you live somewhere and still be homeless? I think is what Charles is saying.
Is a tent under a flyover under a bridge a home? If you have, especially if your kid is there.
If that's all you've got, then it is.
Then they're not homeless, are they?
No, but that's if their hat is in the tent.
Well, they
Only
are
if their hat
when
is
their
in the tent.
tent gets thrown away in the trash and all their belongings. Then they're homeless again. And I think that's the thing is, they have their tent and maybe they can have a modicum of feeling of safety of their own space, but it's even more fleeting than a renter, for example, who could get notice that they have to move. Homeless people don't get notice. They just get undermined.
Get moved on.
Yeah. It's a very sad thing.
Yeah, well, they're houseless.
Yes, they are.
Because, as Mo would say, wherever you are, wherever your hat is. I mean, I think that's fair enough. If you're living a traveling lifestyle, as I did for many years, the boat I was on, whatever boat it was I was on, my bunk was in, was my home, and
right.
It was good to come home from whatever you were doing on land and get on the boat.
I just want to know whether Shelley slept in her hat.
In her hat. Well,
let's see.
You didn't have to hang it.
Well, so we're talking about two things.
Sleeping in the hat. That would be a pretty big hat.
Well,
that sounds like fun.
With your hat on, let's say.
But, I mean, most of what I've heard the three of you say is home is a psychological condition. Home is a place where you feel comfortable, right?
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Safe. Comfortable, free to be me.
Free to be me. But,
I said that just for you, Charles.
Boy, thank you. But I'm saying there's something else. When home used to refer to the locus of the productive activity that sustained you. It's just home as a psychological category.
Is that before we had cars and garages?
Yeah, in a way, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, in a way, before industrialization.
Right.
So a lot of people really don't like what's happened because of industrialization, what it did to human relationships, what it's done to the environment, what it is, the new and nasty wars that it brings along. So they want to go back to something that relates to the subsistence way of life, which is about being in a
like
particular
the village where everyone, somebody makes the clothes and somebody cooks the food and somebody gathers the food and somebody hunts for the food and somebody takes care of the kids and somebody takes care of the old people.
Yeah, that's right. And all of those functions that now we turn to professionals or institutions to provide, people used to be able to provide for themselves or used to be able to provide collectively, right, for themselves. So, but to do that, you actually have to, in a way, and I see all these nature groovies wandering around, hopping out of their Subarus to examine the grass.
You're really in a... this is without judgment.
Well, no,
Except for Charles.
I'm trying to help. What I'm saying is you can't have both. You can't spend your life at 35,000 feet constantly flying around the world and re-embed yourself in nature in the way that these people idealize. What they really want to achieve with all of this commodified, let's buy nature, I'm going to buy...
What does this have to do with home? I'm sorry.
Well, I'm
You're
saying
talking about people enjoying nature.
Home not as a psychological category, but home is the locus of production. That's what I'm saying.
Well,
production. Home is only about production.
No, did I say those words? I did not.
Home is the locus of production. Okay.
Only. You added the word only.
Okay, but there are other things about
Sure.
home that make it different from every other place on the planet.
Family.
What would that be for you?
Well, no, not anymore. It doesn't make it, because if it's a psychological category, then you're right. Wherever your hat is can be your home. Home could be prison. Home could be Mars. Home could be wherever, right? So that's the problem. There is nothing when you say home that refers to something, to a specific place, to a geographical place. It only refers to a feeling of comfort and ease. And so we are talking about two separate things. And I think it's important to talk about. I don't deny anything that you guys have suggested about how being in that comfortable bed or how you feel in your kitchen or, all that, absolutely. I'm just saying home used to have this concrete meaning, and it's just lost its concrete.
Well, before we all left the nuclear or the nucleus of family, right?
I was asking
which you've done. I mean,
Yeah, sure.
which we've all done. We've all left where our parents were.
Well, I'm sorry I didn't kill them all first. I just left. I thought that was very civilized of me. What were you going to say, Stephen?
No, I can't remember.
663-8492.
I was wondering what you call home. You're talking about the 19th century, for crying out loud.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah,
it's not that long ago.
Well, come on into the 21st.
century, yeah.
Let's get now.
Well, I think you can do it now, and it's actually easier to do now. So, for instance, my grandfather told his father he wanted to be a farmer, and his father just looked at him like, you're an idiot. You want to work 16 hours a day, every day, but go to school. And so we've been on this whole 100-year or 150-year arc of the farm or being tied to this particular place is drudgery. It's this narrow life. It doesn't have all of the joys of the city and arts and culture and stuff like that. We've sort of come back to this place where we should take advantage of all these technologies that will bring us all of that richness of city life, but we can do it there on that farm and get back to more of a subsistence way of life. I think it would make people happier and healthier, and I think that's what they're really looking for. Unfortunately, they're persuaded that you could just buy it, that it's a magazine that you buy, that it's a conference that you pay for, that it's a weekend at whatever Spirit blah blah.
Well, if that's the only tie you can create for yourself to nature, I think it's still worthwhile.
I think it's
even if it's temporary.
I think it's an even worse hell because it's saying you can have that thing that is so specific and so particular. Just whenever you want it. So it debases the concept, actually. Mm-hmm. But it is their good intention, right? You're saying, okay, people have a good intention, and so this is what they're doing, and maybe it leads them to some more deep engagement with nature or place. I hope that you're right, but I think that there's another side of it, which is merely therapy. People have these feelings of alienation, of separation from nature in the city. They come out, they buy a little bit of the countryside. At the end, on Sunday evening, they drive back.
Well, I want to get back to it. Is there a place you call home?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I guess where I live.
Well, what's the nature? Why do you call it home?
But I mean, it's just the common parlance. It's just what we refer to the place as you sleep at night. It doesn't have any greater characteristics than that. I would say.
What kind of pictures do you have on the wall?
I have.
Don't tell them.
Paint me a picture of your home.
There
Charles.
is a banner from the last ever pig roast at the Tamales Town Hall. People stopped doing it because of our rich community. There is a painting that my South African nephew made.
What's the image?
Of Bantustan. No, I'm sorry. No, it's a little child's painting. Lovely Magnus Xavier Coetzee. And then a picture of my aunt posing with an owl that was taken at some farmer's market in Martha's Vineyard. A picture of my aunt with a picture of Zero Mostel held up next to her head. It's a couple of pictures of my aunt. But no, I mean, I love those objects, but actually I feel very unattached to this particular place. I have a very strong feeling that, I'm never going to own anything in West Marin or have a more permanent way of living here. I look at even places to rent and could rent long term and stay for 15, 20 years, maybe longer. And I think the kind of way that you'd have to work in order to support that level of paying rent, for some people, absolutely worth it. For me, I would value my free time over the vistas. But some people, the vistas are everything. It's just, I'm in the groovy place. I'm in the cool place. Not as much for me. Not that I don't love it out here.
So
it is
ownership for you. I'm hearing ownership. You're saying that over and over.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, ownership is very deeply embedded in our culture. And it's
talking
really
about
important.
you.
And home ownership.
Personal.
Yeah. Sure. Well, but I mean, it's just part of our life. See, this is a common mistake that Marxists or people who are inspired by Marxism make, which is to denigrate the idea of private property. I think what they mean is this concentration of wealth that certain individuals or corporations have acquired, and in that sense I would agree with them. But in Western democracy, not Athenian, but the one that arises out of medieval German city-states, which is the one that we have, private property is absolutely essential. That's how it works. I mean, the original thing was that private claims of ownership were being defended by the city-state against the claims of princes. So ownership is very important, but it's very important to the whole culture.
Any place he has an ashtray is
realtors sell homes. Realtors sell homes, right? They always say it's a home. They don't say it's an investment or a house that you can make money on. It's it's a home. Anyway, what does it all mean? That's the question for the day. What is home? Give us a call, 415-663-8492. And this is KWMR, Point Reyes Station, and it's Let's Talk with Stephen Hurwitz, Shelley Rugg, Charles Schultz, and myself, Paul Raffel. And KWMR's annual Sweethearts of the Radio is coming up on Saturday, February 10th at the Dance Palace in Point Reyes Station. A big thanks to our event sponsors, Bolinas Community Center, Inverness Park Market, Ken and Sam Levin Window Cleaning, Point Reyes Vacation Rentals, Side Street Kitchen, Station House Cafe, Susan Hayes Handwovens, and West Marin Pharmacy. Thanks also to our in-kind donors, Bolinas Hearsay News, Bovine Bakery, Brick Maiden Bread, Flower Power, Hydron Meadery, Lagunitas Brewery, Pacific Sun, and the Point Reyes Light. Tickets to the show are available online at kwmr.org. We'll see you at Sweethearts. That's on Saturday, February 10th at the Dance Palace. Coming up this Saturday. Support for KWMR programming is provided by the California Film Institute, celebrating film and media as art, entertainment, and education at the Christopher B. Smith Raphael Film Center, the Mill Valley Film Festival, and through CFI education programs. Information at cafilm.org. And we're also supported by To Celebrate Life Breast Cancer Foundation, raising funds to help underserved women and men living with breast cancer. Through its Bay Area Breast Cancer Grants Program, the foundation supports nonprofits that provide direct and emergency services and believes that no one should face breast cancer alone. Information about how to get involved is available at tocelebratelife.org. And we're here discussing the concept of home in the 21st century. What does it mean in the 21st century when divorce, more than half of marriages end in divorce and families are split up, the home's broken? I come from a broken home. What does it mean? And we all travel to where work is. Well,
that's why you have an affair with your secretary, because you spend more time with her than you do at home. Right?
Yeah.
You're a stranger to your children. You're a stranger to your wife. You know your coworkers much better.
So the office would be the home.
Yeah, in a sense, where you in my, I know we're talking about two senses, but my sense of being the particular place in which you're working and doing things, then yeah, the office is much more home than home.
But what about being more like a sanctuary, as opposed to, I got to go home and get to work? That
it's
this
a
is
place
go
where
home
you go
and relax.
from work.
Yes,
Well, that's the design. That's the suburban design. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's suburbia, right? I mean, that's the idea of suburbia, which is, work is someplace else, and here is just this pleasure palace where everything's lovely.
Except that they leave it every weekend.
Well, but R.D. Lang, right?
A pleasure palace.
Or whatever, right?
Okay,
I mean,
in Marshall, everybody.
Oh, yes, yes. I need to go use the sauna. Thank you for reminding me, Shelley. No, I mean, R.D. Lang, his whole vision of a modern mental illness was based on what he called the carbon monoxide environment of the home. He was talking about how these homes, in his experience with this home life with this nuclear family, with this narrow world that these mothers were living in, or even wives, was causing mental illness. It was actually causing them to go crazy. But the idea would have been your idea, which is the man goes off to work and then comes home and relaxes and smokes a pipe and watches TV. But he was saying it's actually making people nuts.
That is, that could be, but that is what home means now, right? I mean, when most people are working in offices or factories or industrialized and bureaucratic society that we now live in, home is the sanctum away from the workplace and becomes the place that makes you feel at ease and you don't have to worry about work.
That's,
for the working class.
Unless you do work out of your home or you have creative interests around the home.
I do work from home. So I really have learned that I have to create structure so that I can clock out and then relax and get into a different mindset. I'm not working now. I'm home.
You're home. Yeah. So you have to separate work time from home time even when you're at home.
Right.
Home has always been a workplace for women. Let's just say this notion of working at home, yes, always for women, has become a place of work for many more people, at least those whose first action on waking is to check emails.
What?
How are you doing over there with your emails? He just woke up. And people are working from home now more, right? I mean, we're able to work from home more.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, does that mean you're in the 21st century, that you're actually sort of changing the nature of home, that now it's become this workplace with people who are in homes 1,000 miles away? I don't know. It's not like you're creating anything there. It's that you're just corresponding with people. Like if you're a consultant, as you are, and you're communication. It's a communication center rather than a place where you relax and.
Sure. And I just say, like, we talk about the vegetarian argument that, we need to reduce the amount of meat we eat. Absolutely true. We also need to reduce travel drastically. But that can be experienced just like having more vegetarian diet. Something that you do, that you experience as pleasure, that you do as enriching your life, not taking something away, not a loss, but something that you gain in health, gain in sort of happiness and well-being. So, all of this communications technology is supposed to mean that we can, stay at home, basically. You don't have to go into an office, and yet people still are commuting and commuting in the Bay Area. Good Lord.
I think there's an intention to home. Home is something you make. It depends. You can make home anywhere. There are people probably in Syrian refugee camps that are making they're stuck, but they're trying to make that spot home for them.
What a hideous vision!
Well, yeah, but there it is in the 21st century.
And the tent, if they have hats in that refugee camp, only if they have their hat.
But
I think it's an intention.
Right. I mean, they have all the elements of home, except as much as a renter.
Well, it
in
sounded
West Marin.
It sounded like
there's a place that they have.
It meets your criteria, though.
That has been provided, or they have built for themselves. It has the family. It has food and water, apparently.
A space where they can
lie down,
call
sleep,
their own,
watch TV.
But I think that being in one place, and certainly over generations, is very important. It's how the quote poor accrue wealth. Because I go on to ranches in West Marin, families have been there for, say, 120 years, and they're like 25 shovels. And going back, 100 years, it's a history of the shovel. You're just looking at the wall, and they're still being used. And their wealth comes from not having to reinvent all of the tools and skills and things that they need to survive each generation. It accrues over generations. For the rich, this has no meaning. They can own a home wherever they want to, and they can buy another one and sell this one and jump here and jump there, own 5 homes, own whatever. But for the vast majority of people, home comes from that long-term, or the value comes from that long-term specific relationship with one place. It isn't being a gypsy. It isn't.
Which we have all given up, except Stevie, who's been in his house for decades.
40 years.
Yeah, raised a family there.
But that was my intention coming to when I moved in. I didn't know it was going to be Marshall, but I thought I'm just going to stay in one place and not go anywhere. And not go to the destination weddings my friends invite me to. I had 1 year, this was 2016, somebody offered to fly me to France for a destination wedding, offered to fly me to South Africa for a destination wedding, somebody offered to fly me to the Democratic National Convention, turned that one down pretty easily, or fly to another friend in Madison, another friend in New York. I had like 5 invitations of free air travel, and I'm not interested.
You're staying home.
I'm staying home. Why don't we try staying home? But I think that's important, because then you really get to know a place. People, and this is embarrassing, people sometimes refer to me as the mayor of Marshall. Why? Because I'm the person that's just there all the time.
I thought Paul Elmore
I think that's your
Paul Elmore was, yeah.
Hi, Caller. Caller, you're on the air. What's your name, please?
Hey, it's Mia.
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 How are you?
Well, we're very well.
Enjoying the show about home. I just want to say, I think the word that keeps popping up in my mind as you guys are talking is familiarity. So I think for me, like, home is familiarity. So whether it's my house, whether it's like the spot that I always sit at a specific friend's house, or even like my desk at work, like, I think it's just a familiarity, and also sort of a little bit of a sense of ownership, not technical ownership, but sort of like I have like a designated place. And I think we all have like kind of homes in various places where we sort of feel like it's our spot, And of course, other people may use that spot when you're not there or whatever, but you sort of feel like that's my spot,
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of like a mental ownership and also like a familiarity where you just kind of like the ropes around that physical space. So for me, that's just what I was thinking as you guys were talking.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
So
cool.
that's like it's the place. There was a definition that I found: a home is the place that you are best adapted to.
Mm-hmm. And I
And
think it kind of increases the longer you are somewhere. And then I had another image that popped into my mind was, again, homelessness obviously is a whole other topic. But I was just thinking of like one of my, it sounds weird, but like my favorite homeless dudes in San Rafael when I used to live where I was, like we'd always say hi on the way home. Like I would see him, and he had like one spot that he always stood during the day, and he would kind of like, and I don't mean to minimize the fact that he was homeless, but he had like his spot, and you could just tell he like loved his spot. Like he would like there was like the sun would come in like at different times of day, and he like I don't know, I could just tell that he liked this specific spot, and I felt like that was like his, and so that just popped in my mind too. It was like that was sort of like a temporary mini home, and I feel like we all kind of have those like as we move around in the world.
Well, that was his workplace too.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of. So I mean, I think that's where he came during the day, and I don't know where he was other times because he wouldn't always be there. But so that's what I was thinking.
Very good. Thank you, Mia.
Yeah.
Appreciate
It reminds me of some house sitting I've done in the area, and getting to be in someone else's home.
Very interesting.
But after you're there for several days, it starts to feel like, it's so like the familiarity. It's become familiar. I know where to find things in the cupboards. I know how to jiggle the toilet. Whatever the details are, it becomes familiar, and suddenly you can start to feel like, oh yeah, I live here. This is mine, even though it's temporary.
All right. Give us a call, won't you? 415-663-8492. What does home mean to you in the 21st century? Do you think it's changed since your parents' generation or your grandparents' generation?
Home can be a place of a lot of stress. I mean,
home
is not necessarily this idyllic place.
Home and family is the only place that incest and spouse abuse and child abuse happen. Those are homes and families, let's put it that way.
And that's just the fun part.
Thanks for reminding me, Stephen.
Well, but I mean, we're a frontier culture, right? Everybody's supposed to move a little bit further west every generation. And so what our culture is dealing with, it's not even a culture really, but what Americans are dealing with now is that there's no more west to move into. And it's sort of re-examining something that frontier people, settler people like us don't really ever think about, because there was always a place west of Sandusky you could go to. But there's no place west. Toledo, exactly. But there's no place west anymore. There's no frontier to settle. So our relationship to space, to land, to nature, to home, right, it has to radically change. And so we're in the sort of birth pangs of figuring out, well, what is that going to be? And to me, I think is that you take all the things that you learn and you look back east and start fixing the problems we left behind.
And maybe move back to Sandusky because it's so cheap there.
Yeah, exactly. Sandusky, what do you say?
I was back to Sandusky 10 years ago for a homecoming.
Homecoming.
And I was
You went to homecoming with an 18-year-old teenager. What's going on here?
I'd forgotten what a nice little town it is.
Oh, there you go. We have a caller. Hi, caller, you're on the air. What's your name, please?
Biff is calling in.
Biff. Oh, Biff, how are you?
Biff.
Well, I'm well, and I just wanted to give a ditto to your host's familiarity.
Shelley said familiarity.
No, Mia.
Oh, Mia said familiar. Excuse me, caller.
Well, it might have been, I think it was both. It was like an agreed...
yes.
Anyhow, but I think familiarity plays a big part. I think that, and that even talks to Charles's point, because we are running out of space. But I think that to me the definition is familiarity. After a few days, a place becomes home. You start to jiggle the toilet and that sort of thing.
What's all this toilet jiggling?
What's all this toilet?
Your toilet's all perfect, I guess.
You're a toilet jiggler, Biff.
As I've traveled, in fact, Mo's point was well taken too. It's like as I've traveled, if you stay in a place for a little bit longer, after a while, that familiarity kicks in, and it all those feelings of home. You know, and in fact, I same sort of thing as Mo. I find myself, saying when I'm out, and traveling, if I've been there long enough, it's heading home.
Yeah. A hotel room is just a rented space that is yours for a little while, just like a rented house. And it can be home. It can be a haven from unfamiliar territory. And after a day or so, you make it your own, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Well, some people experience it differently. I mean, given your career or one's career or one's just desires, constant travel is their pleasure. I mean, it's what they want to be doing. It's what's part of their career. It's kind of part of it. On the other hand, I was at a little backyard party in Marshall recently, and one fellow I was talking to said I had 1 year where I had 1.8 million frequent flyer miles, and it was just profoundly disoriented. You woke up in a hotel room and didn't know what time zone you were in, whatever. So I guess it depends what you want.
There was that George Clooney movie, Michelle Pfeiffer, Up in the Air, and that was kind of the gist of the story, is that he was always keeping the world at bay by being up in the air.
But for some people, like I say, I mean, if you, for instance, if you were, Biff, you wouldn't understand, but if you were a professional musician, for instance, traveling around, performing music might just, be a part of what you do and might be a great pleasure, might be a great joy.
I have friends who had a house in San Francisco and a second house here in Inverness, and they found themselves spending more and more time in Inverness than in the city, and what they considered home moved, whereas the city was no longer home, and then what started out as a second home became home for them.
Well, that sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah, right. But here's the other thing is that's what Mia was saying, just what I was saying, right? It's a psychological experience, right? So, but that, I think the problem becomes is that you can apply that to anything. Home is the bathroom down the hall. Home is this sandwich, because I have a feeling of familiarity with these flavors.
People are going to call in just to put you in your place.
It's good. I hope so. 663-8317. That's right. That's being put in my place is a feeling of home for me, Stephen. You'd be surprised to know. And I wear a hat.
Well, my childhood home did not feel safe.
Hey, I know that's like.
And so I remember thinking, someday I can have my own home and have it be the way I want it, right? Peaceful. That's all I wanted. Peace.
Place where nobody's going at each other.
Yeah.
A lot of siblings?
It wasn't the siblings.
Oh.
Well, actually, I take it back.
It was the siblings.
It did become the siblings, but really it was more bipolar mom.
Oh, well, that's fun.
Well, Biff, thank you. Are you...
I could probably get back to gluing at this point.
Oh, yeah. Get that gluing done, would you?
Pick the wrong day to stop sniffing.
It.
Yeah, right. Pick the wrong day to stop sniffing glue, Biff.
Thank you, Biff.
Sorry. Thank you, Biff.
Off I go.
Oh, 663-8492. Join the conversation about home. Home is this microphone. Home is my laptop. Home is my shoe.
I feel at home in the studio.
You look at home.
He's at home in a beard.
Yes, home. Maybe home is just an emotional state. Maybe it is a psychological state. I mean,
but that's
if anywhere
it can be. I think it can be.
If any house you happen to be paying money to be there for, whether you're paying it to a bank or not.
Not necessarily.
It could be. Anywhere can be home. Therefore, it's just what you project onto it.
If it has the right ingredients, you can make it home.
Well, to me, it's two similar conditions, but experienced differently. If you're rich, constantly being displaced, you call the good life. It means going between your many homes. It means traveling all the time. It means trips and stuff like that. You experience that as like, this is the way you have to live in the experience economy. For the poor, this same kind of displacement is their hell, is the fact that, trade treaty just destroyed the agricultural sector in Mexico, so now I have to wash dishes dishes in Minnesota.
For a guy that's never been rich, talking about them so much.
Well, I've observed. So but what I'm saying is that the pernicious quality of that is the rich person when they travel say everywhere is home, and it's a positive thing for them. If you would apply the same thing to that displaced immigrant who has to wash dishes in Duluth, Minnesota, and say, "Oh, but didn't you know this is just home? This is your new home, home."
Well, so
that's pernicious. That's ugly.
But do they make home? I mean,
sure,
what
but
does it mean? What does it mean to them?
Well, they're forced to, but they're experiencing this as a loss. The rich experience it as a gain, as something they're getting. The poor experience it as something they're losing because they can't just stay in one place.
Right.
So it's just people look at it through different eyes, and I can see both of them. I like both of them. You know, I mean, like I'm not burning down the houses of the rich. I mean, I might start, but
burning down.
We hadn't thought of burning down the house.
Burning down the house. Yeah, I was looking for theme music for the end of the show.
We have time for another caller. 663-8492. Call in. Biff had the courage to call in. You can too.
Biff called from his home.
Gosh.
I'm just going to do this for a while.
I think that, we do have a choice of how we look at things. So we can experience hardship whether we're rich or we're poor. In reality, we can actually have that feeling. And so likewise, we can make choices in how we see whatever we're experiencing. And it can help us get through it, if nothing else.
You brought up a good point. I think that having a home is a richness. It has nothing to do with money.
Of course not.
so I'm just saying there is a richness to the quality of home. It's that value.
So you would tell somebody living in a tent under an overpass in Oakland that having a home has nothing to do with money. It's simply a state of being.
That isn't what I would say.
Oh, okay.
It's more that person themselves. It's not that you tell somebody, just think about it differently, but that's a choice they can make for themselves. That I don't know. I don't want to make light of it at all, but I know that any human being can really have a better life by how they change their thinking about things.
I think that again there is probably some truth to that, but the power of positive thinking, you need to inspire your way out of homelessness and mental illness and multi-generational poverty. If you were just more positive,
that's not what I mean. I don't mean that. I don't mean that there's necessarily going to be some kind of fairy's going to come and build you a real house and throw your tent in the trash if you think differently about things. But it's more an internal thing that just to get you through. I mean, you can let hardship really bring you down, or you can find...
it's necessary.
Inner strength. I mean, the people living in tents under overpasses or refugee camps
they're doing the best they
obviously are strong because they're
surviving.
Doing what they
examples.
Can.
Yeah.
When it seems right now the conversation is either rich or poor or something like that. Actually, people live in between. This is not
So we talk about them too. I mean, it's just like I say that's more of a going home in that place. It's where you relax and enjoy. That's more of a lower down on the economic scale. For if you're higher up, you go home and plan your next vacation. Home is just that little in between place in between work and your next trip to SFO. It's
a pretty rash generalization.
Wow.
But yes.
I know.
Then you make some. Assert something. Then I'm sorry.
I would say
Charles speaks. That's terrible. He shouldn't.
I would say that. Wealth does not, lack of wealth does not preclude you from having a sense of home.
Oh, no,
How's
no,
that?
they do. I'm just creating the distinction that more of that you go home and that's where you relax. That's if you're lower down on the scale. If you're higher up, you're traveling. You're out of that place more.
Well, only
more
for
frequently.
ones who are traveling. How about the wealthy people who do stay home? And,
where are
where
they?
are they? They
Yeah,
are.
where-
They're here.
I guess. I mean,
I don't think
when they're not
home,
in their
I don't
house in the
see
city.
relaxation as a key to home. By the way.
No. Well, peace, a sense of peace, though. I mean, lying down, sleeping.
But we've
relaxing.
established that home is a word that can mean absolutely anything you want. Whatever
Well, there
you
you
want.
go.
It to be.
This
This
is
sweater is home.
This is the
That
question
is
in the
not
21st
true.
century.
That's
That's the question for the entire show. What is
Who
home?
would have thought it
Is
would be
anything.
so electric in here?
Well, I'm just saying, I'm not. This is not an accusation. I'm not trying to say something mean. But when we say that home is a psychological experience, that means that it can be anything. Anything that gives you that feeling, you can then label home.
a caller.
Yes, you can,
Caller.
Charles.
I know. I'm saying that's correct.
Great.
But that means that it's crazy. The world makes no sense.
Hi,
to me.
caller. You're on the air. What's your name, please?
This
That's
caller
what that means?
Hang on.
anonymous and just express it.
Oh, wow.
I'm at home.
Are you calling from home?
Yeah, and I'm happy here.
Oh,
Good.
excellent.
Excellent.
You don't have to be traveling. You can be
Exactly. Yes. So,
Are you saying you're wealthy? Is that what you're saying?
That's right. Where's the money? He's got a safe.
he has a home.
I'll leave that.
It's a wonderful thing.
We're trying to say that you don't equate it with money. Charles keeps talking about money.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
you know,
You can
this
have
is such
money
a-
and be
this is
homeless.
the
Okay,
inane rich.
I love him.
Who say money, then
You can have money
Okay,
and be
Charles,
homeless.
Charles. Calm down now. We have a caller. Thank you, Biff, again,
or
for
whoever.
calling from home. And we have another caller on the other line.
Oh, wow.
Hi, guys. Can you hear me?
We can. Hello.
It's me again, Mia.
Hi, Mia.
I'm just here to say I think something that might help the discussion is to say I think there's two things. There's one, there's basic needs, and
Yeah.
some people don't have those met, and so that's a huge thing.
Good.
So some people literally do not have the home that they physically need, and so that's one thing that's separate. That's saying like they don't have enough food, they don't have enough shelter. That's one thing, and then there's the feeling of comfort and familiarity that I think everybody on Earth has to some degree, differing levels and in different places, and oftentimes that is in our general home, like our house. But I'm just saying, I think that, like, to kind of recap what I think everyone is saying all of those things, but I think they both exist, and they're kind of two different things.
Yeah.
And oftentimes they exist in one place in their house when somebody does have those basic needs met and also gets that fulfillment. You know, that plays the role of our house for a lot of us.
I think that's well said.
Well done. Thank you, Mia, for
Thank
the
you, Mia.
closing words. Very nice. That's it for this week. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Stephen, Shelley, Charles. And let's just say that KWMR does not take a stand on any of the issues discussed on Let's Talk. Opinions expressed on this program are those of Charles Schultz and callers and don't necessarily reflect the views of KWMR, its board of directors, underwriters, or members. We'll be back next week with another fascinating topic.